Good morning. Well, I'm up on our duck pond here today, and as you can see, there is a slight shortage of ducks. So I've got various theories as to why the ducks aren't up here, and I'm going to be working my way through them over the next couple of weeks to see if I can improve this pond and get the ducks back. Now, we did have a slight problem where a fox or something got into the enclosure the other year, so that took all our captive ducks. So I have been through and repaired the fences, so the foxes weren't getting in here anymore. So that encouraged the wild ducks back earlier in the year. But for some reason since then, they seem to have moved on. You do still occasionally see them around on the middle lake, and you do see them down on the bottom lake. So they still like to be in the area, but they don't seem to like this pond for some reason. So my main theories is basically it's getting overgrown. So you've got this grassy patch here and a grassy patch at the far end down there. Now that's getting quite thick with reeds. Now as much as ducks like being on the water, they do also like to sit out on the side. So at the moment they're either in the water or they have to try and fly out the enclosure. So if I trim those areas down, that'll give them somewhere to sit. Now talking about flying, that is the other problem. As you can see, we've got this line of willow trees along the back there. Now if you look from right down the far end there along, you'll see they sort of grow in from both sides to the point they're almost meeting. Now ducks don't take off vertically, they take off like an aeroplane. They need to have a nice runway. And I'm thinking this area of water here is just too short. They need to get all the way down through here. And I think they just basically feel trapped. So you can see with the willow over there, the branches are coming down anyway and they are snapping off. This is a rubbish type of willow tree. Now the owner doesn't want me to clear them entirely, which is understandable because he likes the divides between this pond and the fishing lake on the other side. But I'm thinking there's a lot of hanging down branches that I can remove, and again this tree here I'm thinking I'll try and get that one out as well. So yeah, that's the plan. Basically try and open it up a little bit more so it's not quite so enclosed, but at the same time still trying to leave some cover because obviously they don't want it as open as the middle lake because that's a bit too open for them. So it's going to be hard to find a nice balance, but we'll see what we can do. So yeah, let's start with getting the strimmer out on these areas. And yes, that fence is broken and needs to be repaired as well. So before I start trimming this, I thought I'd show you a bit more of a close-up of it. To be honest, although it looks a mess, there's actually quite a few different seed heads in here. So we did have quite a good show of flowers over the end of the summer. So you can see this one here is kind of a ball shape. That was a nice round purple flower. And again, you've got this one here, which is a tall purple flower. There's also the remains of a thistle in there, which again, you can consider it a weed, but it's actually a really good wildflower. And you've also got these spikes here, which were the pendula sedge. So that has a lovely dangly sort of grass type flower. So there is quite a bit in here. So I'm going to have to find a balance because as much as I want to trim it all down so it's nice and short, at the same time I want to leave some stuff there so that the wildlife can hide in it. The sedge here is great because it's an evergreen, but at the same time it can be a bit of a thug and take over, so I've got to be careful with that. And we've also got this willow tree turning up in the middle here, which at the moment is quite nice, quite small, so part of me goes, leave it, it'll be good, have a little bit of shade here, but at the same time I know how big they get, so I'll probably take a couple of branches off, but I might leave that in place as well. So yeah, let's get some tools and see what we can do. Right, well I'm going to start from this end because this is the easiest place for me to get in, and to be honest I'm going to do most of it with pruners if I can. I'm hoping that section over there, because it's already dead, will just break up when I hit it with a rake. If not, I will use a strimmer, but obviously it's noisy, so I'd rather not if I don't have to. Alright, let's get on. Okay, well it's a bit hard to show because the sun's really getting quite bright now, but that's opened up that area nicely so the ducks can get in there, they can sit down on the ground. I've taken as many brambles out of there as I can because obviously we don't want the brambles taking over, but everything else I've cut down so the roots are still there. They should come back up again later in the year, so come the summer I can take another assessment, see if I need to thin it out again so that the ducks have got somewhere to sit, or whether I can just leave it and let the wildflowers grow. But yeah, so now on to the far end down there. Okay, so that's the area I've just tidied over there. So we're now onto this area, and like I said earlier, it is completely overtaken with Glyceria. And the most disappointing thing about it is that I planted it. Now I did say at the time that it wouldn't be a good idea, but it was 3 months after I started, and the manager at the time, who was completely useless, insisted that I planted Glyceria in here. So what we did was we took it from that pond over there that had been completely swamped by it, and put it in here. And lo and behold, it spread and swamped out everything. So to say it swamped out everything, there's some yellow flag iris that's just about struggling to survive down there. So if you know how invasive yellow flag iris is, the fact that that's being swamped out, you know how bad the Glyceria would be. But yeah, it's all to do with the way it grows. It grows really quite tall. It can grow 4 or 5 foot tall, which shades out most plants around it. It then flops over like this in the autumn and winter, and the only thing that seems to be able to grow through this mat of grass is the Glyceria itself. So yeah, I'm hoping if I go through this with the strimmer and break it all up, I might be able to allow some light down to the soil, and we might get other plants grow. It's unlikely. The only other thing that does seem to be growing through here is a bunch of trees, which we don't really want. So yeah, I'll go through it with the strimmer, I'll cut those trees down, and then we'll probably have to strim it a few times in the year just to keep this under control, because otherwise the Glyceria is just going to keep coming back. But yeah, let's make a start strimming. Okay, so I finished trimming the bank here. I've also gone through and raked all the loose stuff down here into the pond where I'm standing because I'm trying to expose the soil. I'm hoping that some decent plants will grow up there other than the glyceria. Now obviously I am going to have to go through this a number of times with the trimmer just to keep on top of that glyceria, because otherwise it's just going to swamp everything out up there. But I'm hoping if I trim it, I'll kill it off from up there and persuade it to grow down here in the pond. And I say in the pond because, as you can see with the squelchy, this is actually in the pond. All this section here is kind of floating. It's one of the only decent things that the plant can do, is it can create land, so it is spreading quite nicely in from the edge. The only downside to that is I did manage to find out a pipe eventually. This is the overflow pipe from the pond over there, so I'm going to have to clear that and create some sort of gully through here, because otherwise that's going to back up. So I've brought the ditch clearing fork down and see how easily this goes. Right, well that's the end of the pipe cleared and it's all flowing freely. Thinking about it though, I'm going to have to keep this end of the pipe clear obviously, because I don't want that blocking up. But it might actually be good, now I've taken them out, but it might actually be good to have the reeds here, because that means that any muck that washes through that pipe gets trapped here and builds up the bank, as opposed to going off into the pond. So I'm not going to dredge that any further. I would like it to be a little bit deeper just in front of that pipe, but for now that'll do. Next task, we'll be cutting these trees. I'm thinking I've had enough for today, so there's one more thing I want to do before I go home to make it easier for cutting the trees tomorrow. Okay, so I'm down at the other end of the lake now, and my plan is to drop the water level. So you can see that piece of pipe sticking up out in the water. That is the overflow. That is the maximum height this can be. But if I pull that out, it will drain water level. I can probably get it down by about 2 foot in total. But yeah, I don't know how deep the water is either side. There's a platform here a few inches below. I can come across. There we go. So that is now draining. That'll drain it down by that much. And then there's a 90-degree bend on the bottom of that, which I should be able to twist over as well when the water level gets that low. But for now, I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, well that's the end of day one. So not a lot of change, but it is feeling a lot better. So this end here is obviously a lot more open now I've cut all the plants down. And that section over there, now the ducks can get out onto it. Hopefully that'll be a bit nicer for them. But the water level is going to drop down overnight, and that gives me plenty of access for tomorrow. And that's when the big change happens, because I'm going to cut these overhanging branches. So I hope you're subscribed, because then you won't miss out on that video. And I hope you've left a like, because that then recommends this to other people on YouTube and helps spread the word. So yeah, I'm going to end this video here. I'm going to go home and have a good night's rest, so I'm fit and ready to tackle all those trees, and I shall see you later.